I never thought I'd be the guy to catch his wife cheating, especially not in such a brutal, gut-wrenching way. Lisa and I had been together for almost 8 years. We met in college, got married right after graduation, and I genuinely thought we were the real deal. She was the kind of girl who always knew how to make me laugh, even when I was stressed out about work, and I honestly believed we had something solid. Sure, we had our rough patches, who does? But I never imagined I'd end up here, questioning everything I thought I knew about her, about us. It started with small stuff. She'd be late from work more often, claiming she got caught up in meetings or networking events. At first, I bought it. She's a sales manager, so I figured it was part of her job. But then she started hiding her phone more. She'd always been private about her messages, but this was different. She'd lock her screen when I entered the room, and when I asked her about it, she'd brush it off with a bitchy little smile, saying I was being paranoid. "It's just work stuff, babe. Relax." She'd snap, and when I pressed her about the late nights or the mysterious texts, she'd either get defensive or just change the subject entirely. Then, last week, everything shifted. I helped our friend Mark move into his new apartment. He's been a good friend for years, and I thought we had a solid, honest friendship. But when I saw Lisa's name pop up on Mark's phone last night, I didn't think much of it. I figured maybe they'd been texting about moving plans, or maybe she wanted to check in on him. But then I saw her name in his recent texts, something about "can't wait to see you tonight," and "just a little more patience, babe." My stomach dropped. I felt that familiar sinking feeling in my chest that I've learned to dread. I started to pay more attention. The next morning I noticed she was acting weird, avoiding me, giving me half smiles that didn't quite reach her eyes. I saw her quickly hide her phone when I entered the room or take calls in the bathroom. My gut told me something was wrong, but I didn't want to believe it. I told myself maybe I was overreacting. Maybe she was just stressed, or maybe Mark was just a friend. But I couldn't shake this feeling that I was missing something, that she was hiding something big from me. And I knew deep down that it was more than just a little flirtation or harmless texting. The way she acted, the way she'd lie and deny everything, it was like she was trying to erase the truth from her own face. That night, I decided to follow her. I didn't want to do it, but I needed to know. I waited until she left for her girls' night out, as she called it, and then I took her phone just to peek at her messages. I wasn't planning to look at everything, just a quick glance. But when I unlocked her phone, I saw a string of messages that made my blood run cold. She was texting Mark, telling him how much she wanted to see him, how the sex is better when I'm with you, and she kept calling him babe. That was the moment I realized I'd been living a lie. The Lisa I knew, the girl I married, was just a mask. Beneath it, she was cheating on me with my best friend. I stared at the phone in disbelief for what felt like hours. My mind was racing, trying to process how I could be so stupid, so blind. All those late nights, all those small lies I brushed off, she was using those as cover for her affair. And Mark, my friend, the guy I had just helped move into his new place last week, he was the one she'd been sneaking around with all this time. I could feel my fists clench, my heart pounding like a drum. I didn't know what to do next. Part of me wanted to confront her right then, tear her apart with the truth. But another part just wanted to crawl into a hole and disappear. I sat there staring at her messages, feeling betrayed on every level. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted with my life, was out there having sex with Mark, lying to my face every day. I kept asking myself if I ever really knew her at all, or if I was just fooling myself into thinking I had a normal life. The worst part, I'd helped. Mark moved last week. I'd been joking around with him about how they'd probably hook up eventually, and now I knew I'd been right all along. That feeling of betrayal just kept growing, and I knew there was no way I could ignore it anymore. After I saw those messages, everything else kind of blurs out. I don't remember how long I sat there staring at her texts, but it was long enough for my mind to go into shock. My hands were trembling, and I felt this burning rage building inside me. How could she do this? After everything we've been through, after all the promises, the dreams of growing old together, she's out there screwing my best friend. It felt like my world was crumbling around me. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I could have been so blind. I finally snapped out of it when I heard my phone buzzing on the table. It was a text from her. She was calling me, acting like everything was fine, like she hadn't just betrayed me with the guy I helped move last week. I hesitated for a second, then I let it ring. Out, I didn't want to talk to her, not yet. I needed time to breathe, to think. But I knew I couldn't keep this inside. I had to confront her, had to get some answers, even if I already knew the truth. That night I waited for her to come home. I didn't sleep. I just sat on the couch, staring at the door, wondering what I'd say, what I'd even do when she walked in. When she finally did, her face lit up like she had no idea I'd been snooping. She tried her usual "hey babe" smile, but I saw right through it. I just looked at her and said, "We need to talk." Her face fell and I could see the panic in her eyes. She tried to play it off, claiming she didn't know what I was talking about, that I must be misunderstanding. "You're overthinking, as usual," she snapped, trying to brush it off with that bitchy attitude she always slips into when she's lying. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I threw her phone on the table and showed her the messages. Her face turned pale, but she still kept lying, saying it was just harmless flirting, that Mark wasn't serious, that it was just sex, and everyone does it sometimes, she sneered. That's when I realized I was dealing with a woman who's a master manipulator. I could feel my anger rising, but I also felt a crushing sadness. I always knew Lisa was a bit bitchy, a little bitchy even, but deep down I thought she was loyal. I thought she loved me. Turns out, she was just stringing me along while she was screwing around behind my back. Hearing her try to justify it all just made me feel sick. I wanted to scream, to call her out on every lie, but I just sat there, staring at her with a mix of fury and heartbreak. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, so trusting, and now I was faced with the brutal truth that the woman I married didn't love me. She loved the idea of the life we had, but not me. That night was just the beginning. The next few days were a blur of shock, anger, and grief. I went from feeling like I'd been punched in the gut to feeling like I'd been stabbed in the back. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. All I could think about was how she had lied to my face, how she had been screwing my best friend, and how I had helped him move into his new apartment last week, thinking we were all friends. I kept replaying every little moment, every sign I missed, every time she brushed me off or snapped at me for asking questions. It was like I'd been living in some kind of nightmare. I started questioning everything. Was our marriage even real? Had she ever loved me? Or was I just some placeholder for her to show off to her friends? I kept asking myself if I'd been stupid to trust her at all. And the worst part, the thought that she might have been doing this for a long time, maybe even before we got married. The betrayal cut so deep I almost didn't want to believe it was real. I felt this overwhelming sense of loss, like I'd lost my wife, my best friend, and my sense of stability all at once. I didn't know what to do, didn't know how to move forward from that point. But I knew one thing: I couldn't stay silent. I had to figure out my next move, even if it broke me apart in the process. The next morning hit me like a freight train. I woke up with a pounding head and a sick feeling in my gut. It was like I'd been hit by a truck, but the pain was mostly emotional. This gnawing ache inside that told me everything I'd suspected was true. I kept replaying that moment last night, the confrontation, her stupid attempt to deny everything while her eyes betrayed her. I knew she hadn't just slipped up, she'd been lying to me for months, maybe longer. The whole marriage felt like a sham now, a lie built on her bullshit. I couldn't keep it inside anymore. I needed to do something, but I didn't want to just lash out blindly. I decided I had to come up with a plan, one that would not only expose her but also give me some kind of justice or closure. First, I needed more proof. I went through her phone again, digging through her messages, her emails, her social media accounts. I wanted to be sure about everything before I did anything rash. Turns out she was even more active than I thought. She had a whole digital breadcrumb trail, secret messages, photos, plans to meet up with Mark again. It was clear she wasn't just flirting. She was deep in this affair, and I caught her at the worst possible moment. But I also realized I couldn't just confront her and hope for an apology. No, I had to take control of this mess. I started thinking about how I could turn this to my advantage. I remembered Mark had been boasting about how hot Lisa's sex was and how she was a wild one in bed. That pissed me off even more. I knew I had to make her pay, but I also wanted to do it smart, something that would hurt her, but also make her realize she couldn't keep doing this behind my back. That afternoon, I put my plan into motion. I contacted a private investigator I'd known from a friend of a friend. I told him to follow her, gather evidence, and see how deep this rabbit hole went. I didn't want to just assume. I wanted proof that I could use to end this once and for all. I also started to prepare myself emotionally for whatever I might find. I knew this was about more than just cheating. It was betrayal on every level, and I had to be ready for the fallout. While I waited for the investigator's report, I started collecting all the evidence I'd already uncovered. Screenshots, texts, photos, anything that could be used to show her true colors. I also started gathering my thoughts about what I'd say when I finally confront her again. I wanted her to see I wasn't some naive fool anymore. I was done playing her game. I wanted her to understand that I knew everything, that she couldn't lie her way out of this one. The thought of her lying to my face again made my blood boil. I was furious, hurt, and betrayed all at once, but I knew I had to stay calm. I had to be strategic this time. And then, just as I was about to lose all hope, the investigator called. He had the goods. Photos of her sneaking out of Mark's apartment late at night, kissing him passionately in ways I never saw in our marriage. He even caught her in bed with him, her clothes half off, her hair messy. The evidence was damning. It was worse than I imagined. I felt my stomach turn inside out. This wasn't just a fling. It was something real, something she'd planned behind my back. I didn't even know who I was anymore. The woman I married was gone, replaced by someone else entirely, someone I didn't recognize. I knew that I couldn't keep silent. I had to confront her again. But this time I would do it differently. I was going to lay it all out, the evidence, the truth, the betrayal. And I was finally going to find out her real reason for doing this. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was hurt, crushed, and feeling like I'd been punched in the chest so many times I couldn't breathe. Still, deep inside, I knew I had to face her head on, or I'd never be able to move on. The question now was, how much more lies and pain could I take before everything shattered completely? That evening I waited until she got home, my mind racing with everything I had uncovered. I sat on the couch, the folder of evidence I had compiled next to me, feeling like a ticking time bomb ready to explode. When Lisa finally stepped through the door, she looked tired, a little more bitchy than usual, but still trying to act like everything was fine. I could see right through her act now. The mask was cracking. She was about to say her usual, "Hey, babe," but I cut her off. I threw the folder on the table and looked her straight in the eyes. "We need to talk," I said calmly but firmly. Her face froze for a second. Then she started with her usual defensive attitude, saying I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that I was blowing things out of proportion. But I didn't let her get away with it. I pulled out the photos. I'd printed the best ones from the investigator, her sneaking out of Mark's apartment, kissing him, lying in bed together. Her reaction was priceless. She froze, her eyes darted around like a trapped animal. "Those are photoshopped," she snapped. "You're crazy. You're just jealous." I shook my head slowly. "No, Lisa, these are real. This isn't some misunderstanding or a harmless flirt. You've been cheating on me for months and I just found out everything." She tried her classic lies again, saying Mark was just a friend, that they'd never crossed the line, that I was imagining things. But I had enough. I told her I knew about the sex, about the nights she'd spent with him, how she'd lied to me every step of the way. I saw the tears start to well up, but she kept denying it, trying to convince herself as much as me. She spun some bullshit about how it didn't mean anything, how she was just bored and wanted excitement. Her words were hollow, her face dripping with fake tears, but her eyes told a different story, one of guilt and shame. I felt the rage building again. How dare she? How dare she pretend like this wasn't a big deal? After everything I did for her, after all the vows we took. I was furious, but I also felt heartbreak. It was like my entire world was collapsing. I never thought I'd be the guy to confront his wife over cheating like this, especially with her lying and trying to gaslight me. I couldn't believe I'd helped her with her career, trusted her completely, only to be played like a fool. I told her to pack her bags. I couldn't even look at her anymore. I told her that our marriage was over, that I wanted her gone. She started crying harder, begging, saying she loved me, that it was a mistake, that she'd change. But I knew better. Love isn't built on lies and sex with your best friend. I told her she had to leave, and she finally broke down, screaming at me, calling me every name in the book: bitchy, selfish, paranoid. It was like she was trying to make me feel guilty, but I couldn't care less. She wasn't the woman I thought I married. She was just a girl who liked to lie, cheat, and screw her way through life. I felt numb standing there, watching her pack her bags in tears, knowing that my entire life had been turned upside down. I was angry, but I also felt a strange sense of relief. I finally knew the truth, and the truth was that I was better off without her. I couldn't sleep that night, but I finally felt like I was waking up from some terrible nightmare. I had been betrayed in the worst way possible, and I had to figure out how to move on from the wreckage of what I thought was my marriage. Deep down, I knew I'd never trust her again, and honestly, I didn't want to. The woman I married was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize, and that realization hit harder than anything else. The days that followed were like living in a fog. I just kept replaying everything: the betrayals, her lies, the moments I thought we had something real. Part of me wanted to break down and cry, but I held it together. I knew I couldn't afford to show weakness now. I'd already lost my wife, and honestly, I felt like I was losing myself a little bit each day. I couldn't stop thinking about how she had lied for so long, how she had cheated right under my nose, and how I was stupid enough to believe in her. I moved out of our apartment the next day. I didn't want to stay there, surrounded by the remnants of what used to be my life. I found a small, cheaper place nearby, just enough room to breathe and think. Not that I was sleeping much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, her sneaky messages, and Mark's stupid grin. It was like I'd been punched over and over again, and I didn't know how to recover from it. I felt hurt, angry, and mostly betrayed. That bitchy, manipulative side of her had kept me blind, and now I was paying for it. I told a few close friends what had happened, and their reactions were all the same: shock, anger, and a lot of "you should have seen this coming," or "damn, she's a real piece of work." But honestly, I didn't even care what they thought. I knew I'd been played, and that was all that mattered. I was trying to process everything, trying to understand how my marriage had turned into this nightmare. I kept asking myself if I should go for revenge, but I wasn't the revenge type guy. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to do something to make her realize the damage she'd done. So I started planning, not some crazy revenge, but a way to make her see that I knew the truth, that I wasn't some fool anymore. I reached out to Mark's new girlfriend, who I knew from a few work events. I told her what I'd found out and shared some of the evidence I had. I wanted her to know the truth about Mark, about Lisa, about all of it. It was partly revenge, partly just clearing the air. I didn't want her to get hurt, but I wanted her to see what kind of guy Mark really was, probably a user just like Lisa. As for Lisa, I didn't want to see her again. I blocked her number, blocked her on social media, and made sure she couldn't reach me. I didn't want to hear her bitchy excuses or see her fake tears anymore. I knew I needed to focus on myself, rebuild my life, and get past this nightmare. I kept telling myself that I deserved better, that someone who truly loved me wouldn't betray me like this. It hurt, yeah, but it also made me realize I'd been tolerating way too much for far too long. No more. The hardest part was accepting that the woman I thought I knew, the woman I married, was just a lie. That the whole time she'd been playing me, manipulating me, screwing my best friend. That I was stupid enough to trust her, to believe in us. But I also knew that I couldn't let this define me. I had to pick up the pieces, learn from it, and move on. I'd never forget what happened, but I promised myself I'd heal. One day, I would find someone who actually deserved my trust, someone who wouldn't lie and cheat their way through life. Until then, I had to focus on rebuilding, on getting my life back on track, no matter how much it hurt. Looking back now, I realize that this kind of betrayal changes you in ways you don't expect. It's like your whole foundation gets shaken, and suddenly everything you thought was stable just crumbles. I thought I was a guy who could handle anything, but losing Lisa, or rather, discovering she was never really mine, hit me harder than I ever imagined. I spent nights awake, questioning everything about myself, about trust, about love. I'd always believed that honesty and loyalty were the backbone of a good relationship. Turns out I was wrong. What's strange is that, despite the pain, I feel a strange sense of clarity. I see now how blindly I'd trusted her, how I overlooked the signs because I wanted to believe in the good of us. I thought I was doing everything right, supporting her, being there for her, loving her unconditionally. But she was just hiding her real self behind that bitchy little smirk, hiding her lies behind her manipulative words. She wanted the thrill, the excitement, the sex with Mark, and didn't care what it did to me. That's what hurts the most, the realization that I was just a placeholder, an option for her when nothing else better came along. I've learned some hard lessons from all this. Never ignore your instincts, even if it means risking confrontation. Don't be afraid to dig deep, ask tough questions, and demand honesty. Trust is fragile, and once it's broken, it's almost impossible to put back together. But I've also learned that you can survive heartbreak, even the worst kind of betrayal, if you're willing to face the truth and take control of your life. That's what I did. I took the evidence, confronted her, and ended things on my terms. It wasn't easy and the pain still lingers, but I know I did the right thing. Now I focus on healing. I've gone to therapy, started working out again, and most importantly, I'm rebuilding my confidence. I don't know if I'll ever fully trust anyone again, but I do know I won't tolerate anyone lying to me, cheating, or manipulating me. I'm more cautious now, more careful with who I let into my life. And honestly, I'm more aware of my worth. This whole ordeal has been a brutal wake-up call. It's shown me that sometimes people aren't who they pretend to be, especially the ones you love most. But I refuse to let her betrayals define me. I'm moving forward stronger and wiser than I was before. I still believe in love, in loyalty, and in trusting the right person. It's just that now I know better than to be naive. I hope anyone reading this learns from my mistake. Trust your instincts, never ignore the signs, and always remember, some betrayals can shatter you, but you can also use them to become better, stronger, and smarter.